Hi everyone, and welcome to today's event, The Evolution of Retail Media Targeting. So thank you everyone for coming in today. So we have two sessions that we're cramming into this short session today. But before we jump straight into that, I'm just going to introduce myself, introduce the platform and the producers here. So my name is Cameron. I'm Creative and Events Lead at The Digital Voice. We are a B2B PR agency working for advertisers. And we have Rosie in the back end, who is an event producer today. So you can see she's popped a welcome message in there. If you have any technical difficulties today, do reach out over there in the chat. So that's our team. And then this is Remo. So I know that we're all pros now at virtual events, but you might not have seen Remo before. So I'm just going to quickly talk you through how to use the platform to get maximal engagement with the speakers. So over on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the chat, which is where Rosie has popped some messages there. You've also got participants. So this is where you can see everybody who's in the event. And you can also be a bit nosy and check out their company and drop them a message if you like. You can also build out your own profile by going to the very top right-hand corner of your screen and clicking on the little circle, and you can pop in your details there. Next to participants, you've also got some more features. There's the Q&A, closed captions, and polls. They all do what they say on the tin. The Q&A, you can pop in questions for the panelists, and JV, our moderator later, will keep an eye on that. Closed captions, there's two ways you can have that on. You've got the right-hand side where this gives a little summary, and then you've also got closed captions on the bottom panel at the bottom there that pops up with subtitles as well. And then polls, as you know, a poll, we're going to get some voting involved, so keep your eyes peeled as we'll be popping that in shortly when we have Paul and David on stage. So that's how to use the platform. We hope to get you nice and engaged today with the speakers. And now I'm going to welcome on JV, who's International Sales Director for Mediarithmics. So as I welcome on JV onto the stage, everybody pop a little hello into the chat for me there. And also in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you've got some little emojis. Here we go, JV. Nice to see you today.
Hi, Cameron. Thank you.
Nice. Well, I'll hand over to you.
For the intro. Yeah, well, we've been planning that webinar for a few weeks now. There's a great lineup of speakers to go through retail media. You know, why is everybody talking about retail media? What's the opportunity? Is it just for retailers? You know, what's the difference between retail media and commerce media? What do you need to do? And, you know, what are some of the top use cases interesting for brands, interesting for retailers, interesting for media owners. And actually, starting with presentation I'm looking forward to between Nectar 360 and Channel 4, explaining how they've been sharing data for the benefit of brands, but also adding value for the users. So I would want to bring on stage Paul from Nectar and David from Channel 4. And I think, Rosie, will you introduce them? Yeah, thank you. So Paul Floyer from Nectar, we let him introduce himself, and David Cottle from Channel 4. Over to you guys. We're really looking forward to hearing more.
Awesome. Hi, guys. Yes, I'm Paul, Digital Commercial Director over at Nectar 360. And yeah, looking forward to taking you through the partnership with Dave.
Cheers, Paul. Cheers, JV. Yeah, so Dave Cattell, I work at Channel 4. So I work on data partnerships over there. I've been there 11 years. And yeah, very excited to talk to you about this new offering. Shall I crack on, JV?
Yes, please. And I know a lot of people online looking forward to hearing more. It's an industry-leading partnership. We want to hear how you guys did it. Yeah.
Lovely. Sure thing. So we're going to talk to you about a newish commercial offering that we have at Channel 4 that we've created off the back of the partnership that we have with Nectar 360. So this is a new products offering that's given our FMCG clients, as well as Nectar's, a new way of targeting their most valued customers, but also a way for them to measure the impact of sales of doing this. And all of this is within our broadcast of odds premium environment, all four. So we'll be talking about how this product works, but we'll also be demonstrating that it actually works. Next slide, please. So it's worth starting with a bit of background. We've been on something of a data journey at Channel 4 for several years now. There's lots of reasons to this, but really from a commercial perspective, we need our viewers' data so that we can create effective and scalable ways for our customers to target audiences on all four. We use practically everything we know about our registered viewers to deliver these better targeted ads on campaigns. So we use, for example, their date of birth, their gender, their location, their viewing behavior, even their name. But what we've really learned over the last 3 years is that increasingly the most important data point that we get from our viewers is their email address. Next slide, please. So, and we need this to deliver the newer and more sophisticated products that we offer to advertisers, such as Brand Match. Brand Match, this is the one where we match our viewer data with a brand's customer data. We use Infosum to carry out this match for us, and more on them in a moment. But what happens is, once we've carried out the match of customer data with all 4 viewer data, we're then able to see which of our all 4 viewers overlap with a Brand Match partner's customers. And then there's 2 things that we can go and do. So we can either target those customers specifically. For example, maybe they want to upsell products to loyal customers, or we can suppress targeting of them. So, maybe it's for an acquisitions campaign and they want to go after new customers entirely. So that's what Brand Match does. We've had a lot of success with Brand Match. We've had a lot of advertisers that have used it now. So as many as 30 have used it. It's really popular. It's really effective. And we've had advertisers from a range of categories using it. That includes banking, fast food delivery, retail, energy companies. So a real variety of businesses. But the thing that they all have in common is that they all have access to first-party data, specifically email addresses. And we know, obviously, that a load of businesses, a load of our customers specifically don't have first-party data. So, this is a challenge that's particularly prevalent with FMCG brands who don't have first-party data because they don't transact directly with their customers. So we wanted to develop the next best possible solution to Brand Match for these FMCG brands. So that means that in English, if Pepsi can't target actual known customers of Pepsi, then they can reach the next best thing, which would be regular buyers of soft drinks. And it's this that has brought us to Nectar 360.
Brilliant. Yeah, if we could get the next slide, please. So yeah, in terms of our data journey, Nectar 360 is fully owned by Sainsbury's these days, and we run the Nectar loyalty program, which operates on a coalition partnership basis. What this means is that as well as being able to collect and spend points at Sainsbury's and Argos, we also partner up with hundreds of other brands such as eBay, American Express and Esso, allowing for Nectar points to be accrued and then redeemed with these companies too, driving even better engagement levels from our loyalty card users. This has led to us amassing around 17.5 million Nectar users to date, of which around 12 million are considered active. And as I said before, we see that they're a very, very engaged user base. The stat that I always like to quote from this slide to reflect the fact that we see this fact is that we see around 36 swipes of a Nectar card every second in the UK. Our user base is also predicted to grow significantly off the back of our recent Nectar prices launch, which hopefully some of you will have seen this week as well. In terms of our data collection process, at the point of registration, our members willingly give us a number of key data points, such as email, home address, mobile number, because the value exchange is very, very clear. As you can see from the stat in the bottom left of this slide, the value of the points that we give out is around £250 million every year. This then provides us with super rich and consented first-party data that we can anonymize and use to send really tailored and targeted advertising to on a one-to-one basis. If I could grab the next slide, please. And so, yeah, we do this in 3 main ways. So we have our proprietary digital trading platform. This connects directly with DV360, with Meta and YouTube, and allows us to run programmatic display and social campaigns across the open web and also Meta and Instagram, creating audience sets powered by our first-party transactional data, and then closing the loop to report back on sales that we've been able to drive in-store and online off the back of the activity. We then have our e-commerce media platform. This is powered by CitrusAd, and this is for the sort of biddable on-site executions across Sainsbury's.co.uk and Argos.co.uk as well. And finally, and sort of super excitingly, we've been working, within the CTV space on a partner-managed basis for a little while now. But our new partnership with Channel 4 is the first time that we've actually used clean room technology to match data sets with a BVOD partner.
Cheers, Paul. So next slide. So you've got Channel 4, you've got Nectar, you've got 2 parties with a lot of quality first-party data, want to work together, are in a place to do that. So then it becomes a case of, well, how do we match our data sets in a way that's compliant and also accurate? So Paul mentioned Infosum just then. So they're the data clean room that we both use. So the way this works really simply is using their technology, we're able to match the email address of Nectar customers with that of the email address of all 4 viewers. And we're able to do this in a way where the 2 data sets, they're never actually commingled. So this guarantees the compliance piece and stops us getting fined. Because we're using email address, we're matching data sets on a one-to-one basis as well. So what this really means then is if you're an individual and you have the same email address registered as an all 4 viewer as you do as a Nectar customer, then you will be successfully matched and eligible for Nectar targeting on all 4. So that's the science of it. So next slide, please. And be using this matching process, we're able to deliver the retail targeting and measurement off the back of it. And the targeting bit is really simple, and it works exactly as you expect it to. So in a sizable group of our users, by matching Nectar's data with ours, we're then able to recognize a load of shopping habits in our all 4 viewers and target them off the back of it. So that means really is that we can target people that regularly buy, for example, wine or soft drinks or confectionery or packaged coffee, all in Sainsbury's. And none of this is done on proxies or lookalikes. Like, we know for a fact that these people buy these products, so it's incredibly valuable. So it's obviously great for advertisers. They're reaching the individuals that are most likely to buy their products. And this has been in market since October last year, and we're really starting to grow our brand count following what was a deliberately soft launch of the product.
Yeah, just to add to that, for us, this partnership's presented us with a great opportunity to prove out the value of combining sort of our first-party transactional data with that of the all 4 member base to show sales uplift back to clients. As you can imagine, the majority of our digital activity is run a lot closer to a consumer's point of purchase, whether that be sort of selling, upselling them whilst in their online shopping basket, or reminding them of a particular product whilst they're on a shopping mission, or just online in general, where it's easier to kind of add a product to a shopping basket. It's exciting to see how we could impact consumers who are streaming TV shows and therefore clearly not on a shopping mission at the time of seeing if they had, to ultimately take action and buy said product in Sainsbury's a bit further down the line.
Cool. Next slide, please. And it's not just, so I keep saying, it's not just a targeting product. So we're using this, the measurement piece we're delivering off the back of it is as important. So we're able to measure conversion uplift too, and crucially answer the question: Does this work? Does targeting people based on their shopping habits at Sainsbury's, does that lead to an uplift in conversion of buying those products? And it works really simply. All we do is post campaign, we measure the percentage of the audience that were exposed to the campaign that bought the relevant products during the campaign period plus 14 days. And these can be purchases that are made either on Sainsbury's online or in store with the Nectar card swiped. We use InfoSum, them again, to link ad exposure on the left-hand side to, action over on the right-hand side. And we delivered this conversion uplift study for 6 partners, 6 test partners actually, that ran as our beta test that took place across November and December last year. Next slide, please. You should be seeing the partners here. So they all ran, so each of these test partners, they all ran a 4-week burst of activity. They all delivered decent sized budgets. We delivered their campaigns at a sensible frequency level. And each of these, they all targeted the Nectar customer groups that you'd expect them to. For example, Walkers, they wanted crisp buyers, Pepsi wanted soft drinks buyers, etc., etc. And for all of these, we wanted to measure what percentage of those exposed to the campaign via the Nectar targeting bought 2 types of product. So we're interested in what was the primary product conversion. So what percentage of the exposed audience bought the product featured in the creative? So the thing that you're actually seeing the TV creative. And then the secondary metric was, okay, what percentage of the audience exposed bought any product within reason that brand makes? So what was the full brand uplift? What was the halo effect? And for these campaigns, what we're doing is we're comparing the performance of the exposed group to that of control group, like a very fair control group, we think, as well, which consisted of the same buyers of those products, so exactly the same types of customers who are active on all 4 during the campaign. We just made sure that they weren't exposed to the adverts, so that we had a really fair baseline level of purchasing and conversion to compare this to. And we saw some fantastic results. Next slide, please. First of all, across all the 6 test partners, we saw an aggregate conversion uplift of the primary products, that's products featured in the creative, of 29% versus the control group. So we were really impressed by that. We also saw an 8% increase in the secondary sales metric. So obviously like lower in percentage terms, but we're talking about a much higher volume of products sold here. So for some of the brands, they were measuring over 700 products or SKUs. So, you know, actually the volume sold here were really significant. 5 out of 6 of the test partners saw an increase in their primary sales, which I think is great. And then on this last point, on this 56%, so it's going to sound really obvious, isn't it, this bit? But what we saw was a much higher uplift for campaigns that used product-led creatives. So 3 out of 6 of the test partners, they had really strong results, where they had an aggregate uplift of 56%, and all 3 of these campaigns ran a creative where throughout it, what you're seeing is the product being made or in use. All of these campaigns, all of these creatives, they all finished with a really clear end frame of what the product looked like. So, you know, the brands that use real product focused creatives were really successful. So I know it's an obvious point, but getting the creative right for opportunities like this is super important.
Yeah, and looking at these results, it's just really impressive to see that, you know, we're consistently driving strong sales uplift when our segments are used versus the control groups that we used when testing. If we can move to the next slide, just going to touch a little bit on the future of our partnership. So far, you know, we've proved out the effectiveness of using our pre-built segments to drive online and in-store sales in Sainsbury's. We've limited this to tracking and improving sales only so far, though, and there's a lot more I think we could do moving forwards around kind of customer profiling of specific buyers and also kind of when it comes to attribution as well. The pre-builds are working really well, but we could look to also incorporate some custom segments in the future as well. So examples of this would be, you know, looking at targeting aisle buyers, existing or lapsed buyers, basket lookalike groups, and even sort of brand mapped prospects. We've also discussed the potential around non-endemic opportunities. So by this, I mean brands that are not necessarily available to be bought in store. You know, example being an insurance provider targeting sun cream buyers with a travel insurance ad. I think there's definitely a lot of good use cases in this space as well. And then I guess the main learning that we pulled out is the one that Dave has mentioned already. And yeah, it's fairly obvious, but a clear CTA is super imperative. And you know, those product-led ads work best for retail media activations. If it's not product-led, there's obviously other things we can look at, different KPIs such as brand uplift or driving brand sentiment, for example. But yeah, just to conclude, I guess I just wanted to say that it's an exciting partnership in a constantly evolving area of the industry, and we're super looking forward to sort of seeing how it evolves. Dave, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just echo all of that. So yeah, thank you for listening, everyone. We're open for business. This opportunity is available now to any brand stocked in Sainsbury's. If you'd like to discuss this, then and how it can work for your business, please do reach out to us. You'll find us on LinkedIn, I'm sure. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, David and Paul. It's fascinating stuff to hear, especially as Channel 4 already has so much first-party data, and yet, you know, look for complementing that for everyone's benefit. So yeah, thanks for sharing. We'll see. There will be a reminder. I don't want to take Cameron's role, but after the panel, there will be a networking session. There will be a very interactive. It's like a sim-like feature where you can join a table, look to speak to someone privately in a private room, etc., etc. So I hope you guys will join. Stay on for the panel, and I believe we will bring on the other panelists now. So I introduced them in no specific order. What's interesting in that panel is that we actually have the entire food chain, if you think about it, from Alexandra at Channel 4. Thank you for adding her. We have the agency represented by Kiese, who's at Wunderman Thompson. We have the SSP side with Babs at PubMatic. And Paul is going to join us and stay on from Nectar, Sainsbury Group. I think that will be everyone, and there's a little lapse between the actual introduction and someone appearing on screen. But I think, it's good to set the scene a little bit. I think I'd like to hear, I've introduced you, maybe I've done a terrible job, so here is a quick chance to set the record straight. If each of you wanted to give us, where you're from, what you do, and then more interestingly, what is your relationship to retail media in a couple of sentences?
Oh, should I go first then?
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Alex Wright. I am Programmatic and Platforms Leader at Channel 4. I work very closely with Dave in my team, and we were the ones who launched the Nectar partnership at the end of last year. So that's my relationship with retail media. And yeah, my role at Channel 4 is to help evolve both our programmatic and our data-led offering. So I'll pass across to Babs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. So yes, I'm Babs Kane, and I'm a Senior Director of Commerce Media at PubMatic. My role specifically is working with both the supply and the demand side as we try to connect both the demand that's obviously out there in commerce media and support the brands and the companies who are looking to launch their businesses and develop their commerce strategy. And I'll hand over to Kiesi.
Thank you, Babs. Hi, everyone. My name is Kiesi Lamour. I am Global Head of Media at Wunderman Thompson Commerce and Technology. My relationship with retail media is that we service brands that activate retail media programs with retailers, but also because we have a consultancy background, we also tend sometimes to work with retailers in their thinking on how they can set themselves up as media owners as well.
Cool, thank you. So with that, as we were preparing to add value to everyone in attendance, there's various level of knowledge, and in the attendance, there are people from all corners as well of the industry. So I think there's 5 key questions we want to cover today, and we have half an hour to do it and full speakers. So I'll crack on with the first one, is about the why. I think there's a little bit of definition here, but I would say, why now? Why is retail media, buzzing? And is this, I've heard somewhere, is this the year of retail media? Like 10 years ago, it was going to be the year of mobile every year. So are we in the year of retail media, and why? I don't know who wants to jump in first. I have an idea, and I'll keep it. I'll go last.
I'm happy to jump in and take a stab. I mean, I think the presentation just before this was a great example of why this is taking off. I think we're in a period now where the wealth of consumer data, both on the retailer side but also within the platforms, is really leading to allowing brands to speak to and target their consumers in a much more innovative way. I think that, coupled with the fact that we've got the deprecation of the third-party cookie on the horizon whenever it eventually does happen, this is leading brands to look for more secure ways to carry on that conversation with their consumers. And as the Nectar partnership with Channel 4 is showing, some of the conversations we're obviously having, these retail platforms are becoming more sophisticated. So that ability to deliver much more targeted and much more relevant messaging, with the added benefit of being able to then pass back really valuable purchase data and sales data to really prove performance. These are some of the factors that we feel are really driving commerce in this space.
Alex, you may have I'd like to hear why now, because if I may say, Channel 4 has been ahead, and we just saw that presentation, which sort of prove it. You keep being ahead. So maybe the now for you was already 4 or 5 years ago.
It's quite interesting because I think I love when these things are happening sort of organically in different ways in different parts of the industry. I'm speaking very much from a publisher perspective. I don't think we initially went out there going, after a retail partnership, but what we did do is we launched an advanced data suite, and that offered a first-party data matching product through InfoSum, our data clean room. So we invited brands who had their own first-party data to match with our emails, and we realized there was a real gap in our offering. We couldn't service those FMCG clients because they typically didn't have enough of their own first-party data, but they're a huge client base for us. So we went looking for who has that first-party data, and it's the retailers through their loyalty programs, and they had quite sophisticated approaches and commercially minded, and so for us it was just quite a natural, progression from what we were already doing in the data space, and we are just finding that our advertisers, they want data-led solutions, and so for us this was just quite a natural next move for us, but it just seems to also be happening at the same time as retail media is really taking off in so many different places.
And I would like to add a few things to what Babs and Alex have said. Obviously Babs spoke about the promise of retail media for marketers to access deep first-party data and closed-loop measurement. And of course, during the panel, and you've mentioned that, JV, as well, the push from privacy regulations and tech companies' policies, which is, precipitating the departure from third-party cookies. But I think there are also other fundamentals that sometimes we don't talk about, right? It all started as well with, the pandemic, which accelerated a change in consumer behaviors, which in turn provided the right conditions for retail media to flourish. But I think we will be, hypocrites to not also recognize that the Amazon also played a fundamental role in that, right? The potential for lucrative margins for retailers that Amazon demonstrated, just being like the proof in the pudding, also accelerated that movement. And then I think there are other subcurrents that participated in why retail media is taking off right now. Is and I'm an ex-programmatic practitioner, so I always like to give credit to programmatic. But it is true also that, because of the way marketers have been used to working in programmatic and having, more control, more transparency, there is a push as well from the marketing community to have more transparency and control with the digital advertising, leaving retailers with no choice than to adapt as well by offering capabilities and services to really address the needs of their constituents, whether that be self-serve capabilities or more transparent managed service offerings. And then the last point, I think why retail media is taking off as well, is that the potential for new revenue streams that retail media offered outside of the endemic advertisers is also, an interesting element to look at. If you think, for example, of, let's say, on Argos, right, because we're talking about Sainsbury and Argos, I don't think it's far-fetched to think that, an Argos could, for example, allow an insurance company to place ads next to white good appliances. But there are also data partnership, opportunities to be explored, between supermarkets, let's say, with automotive brands to access data if they want to target, let's say, eco-conscious customers or parents, right? The supermarkets have the data that really indicate what those users are buying, which really determines who they are in real life. So I think, it's a mix of elements that have created the perfect storm for retail media to take off and also flourish.
Yeah, and in that perfect storm, what's interesting to me from the perspective of a data platform is that there are, maybe negative reasons. The end of the cookie, which, by the way, we always preach that there's no waiting for the end. There's likely not going to be a cliff edge, but it's already there. The addressability and all of this is very low. But there's also a set of positive reasons, as you just highlighted, such as increased margin or better user experience, et cetera, et cetera. And that brings me to, and I think I want to ask that to Babs, is is retail media, maybe the name is misleading. I like the term commerce media, but that's not a question of personal preferences. If we wanted to add value for the audience, who if we touch on, we just talked about the why and why now, but if we speak to the who can actually benefit from retail media? Like, doing retail media, is it the privilege of retailers? You know, it's a rhetorical question, but I'd like to address that to Babs, because I think even his job title will start answering the question.
No, it's a great question, and it's something that we wrestled with for a little while at PubMatic. You know, we looked at this similar to Alex. You know, we didn't start out to build build a retail media solution necessarily, but we looked at the marketplace. We obviously looked at where the opportunities were and where the conversations were leading for us as a business, and some of those demand-led solutions that we were being tasked with. And we looked at sort of retail as its own sort of category, and how we could offer a solution that would support some of the challenges for brands looking into this. And I think we took that as an initial view, and then took a step back, and we thought we can look at this at a much broader level. So hence we describe this practice, and we do, hence my job title, the work that I do at PubMatic. We describe it as commerce media, because effectively we at PubMatic we define commerce or commerce media companies as any companies that can capture commercial transactions on their digital properties, who can then make that data available for targeting for brands. So it's a relatively simple catch-all term, but effectively it brings in a much wider audience for that potential catch-all. In so much as we will have retail as a subset, and retailers, sort of grocery retailers, as a traditional sector, as a subset within commerce. But similarly, we could also have travel companies or entertainment brands or fashion retailers. And each of these form a specific vertical around the commerce banner. And Kiesi has touched this, and obviously Alex in the presentation earlier touched on this. The desire for brands using that data can lead to much more interesting ways for them to use it. So again, one of the points that was raised earlier, the ability to drive more non-endemic spend into that retail environment or into that commerce environment based on the data. The fact that brands can now use the knowledge of an audience to then better plan how they actually message and how they work with these audiences. So yeah, we feel commerce is the banner, and all of these different subsets just work in tandem within that.
No, thanks for this. I may add, and Alex, feel free, or Kiesi, feel free to jump in, but there's a couple of key concepts here that, apologies if they're obvious to some people in the audience, but the concept of endemic advertiser versus non-endemic, I think it's worth clarifying. It may not be as obvious to all. And the other one is the concept, which I think is behind the definition you just gave, the commerce media. There's the concept of utility publisher. Casey reminded us that, during the past 3 years, there's been a lot more things done online, and therefore a lot more online traffic on, I don't know, for the lack of a better word, utility publishers. Let's say someone selling tickets or Deliveroo, and they also can capitalize on the retail media or commerce media opportunity. So I don't know who wanted to touch quickly on the endemic, non-endemic, because I think it's a key concept and an indicator of the maturity of a commerce media proposition, whether they're able to attract non-endemic advertisers. I
mean, I can go because I used that term in my in my previous response. When we talk about endemic advertisers, basically we're talking about people that sell products, at a retailer. In this case, let's use the Sainsbury's as an example. Unilever would be considered an endemic advertisers because they sell product at Sainsbury, right? And a non-endemic advertiser, by definition of that, is people that don't sell product at Sainsbury's. And in that case, it would be, let's say, if I was talking to Nissan as an automotive brand, is a non-endemic advertisers. If ever, Sainsbury's wanted to open their data and their inventory to Nissan.
Yeah. Thanks. I think, on that point, I think Nissan's probably a really nice and safe example of how that could work. I'm interested in how, and I'm probably speaking for Nectar here, but how you would draw the line as well on who's competing with what you're selling and who's not. So, currently, we're not attracting people who are not stocked in Sainsbury's. For example, we can't sell people who buy frozen pizza to Domino's. We can only sell that to someone who's actually a pizza brand that's actually stored in Sainsbury's. But I do think there's a real future and opportunity outside of what's actually stocked in the retailer that we're working with.
Yeah, no. And so,
can I jump in quickly, because one of the things that I've noticed, especially in our industry, when we talk about retail media, and for valid reasons, we tend to focus a lot around retailers, and you mentioned utility providers, and I think that may make some traditional publishers, let's say, feel like they can't participate in retail media, and I don't believe in that. I'm fundamentally against that. I believe that even traditional publishers can participate and benefit from retail media. Let's take a few examples. If you think, for example, in the most basic form, right? Traditional publishers and let's say the Guardian, they can partner with retailers for their offsite programs by enabling retailers, for example, to curate high quality inventory for programmatic campaigns that retailers offer on a managed service to brands, right? So, Guardian can participate with Sainsbury's and, create, private marketplaces, I don't know what the name is today, so that, Sainsbury's can access the Guardian's inventory for their offsite programs. But, they also can partner with retailers to offer, branded content or advertorial content that lead people back to the retailer's website to convert. So imagine, for example, I always take the example of alcohol, and I'm starting to brand myself as an alcoholic. I'm not, I don't know. But imagine, for example, content about an alcohol brand with a cocktail ingredient list that leads back to a supermarket website. This is something that a traditional retailer can participate in. Another example would be, partnering with a brand to host like highly publicized live commerce events on their website, right? They can do that. But I think there's also, and that is not going to be true for every traditional publisher, but for publishers that have really defined audiences and high scale readership, some of them can even consider moving towards commerce, right? By incorporating e-commerce capabilities on their website and apps, that are very targeted to around specifically, curated products that align with their audience base. So I think, when we talk about retail media and more broadly commerce media, we start to see that, the pie is quite large and that many people can participate and benefit from it.
Thanks for clarifying this, because on the question of who, so we touched on the pure retailers, the commerce media, brands like Channel 4, who totally play alongside, with the Sainsbury, but there's the question of scale. One of the objection is how many retail media networks can be out there? And yes, Amazon is a great example, but is everyone Amazon? So we know that at Mediarithmics, because we speak to a lot of, large retailers in their region, and it's a game of replicating Amazon's success without Amazon. But can we touch on scale quickly? If you among the audience thinking, am I big enough? Can I participate? Can I benefit from? And you didn't say niche, Kiese, but that you were touching on a super specific audience, publisher, niche audience. So yeah, I'd be curious what the panel think about that scale issue.
I can jump in first and pass over, just because this is sounds like it's my favorite topic. I always talk about scale now. In the pure play that we work in, which is just, an email to email match, trying to find a direct customer on Channel 4 and targeting them with an ad, scale is absolutely the most important factor we have to really take into account. As soon as you do a match through a data clean room, you've got to drop off. And then after that, you've got to find that person active, watching your platform during the exact period of the campaign. You know, you can rely on lookalike modeling to expand out that audience. We find that that has a direct impact on performance when it comes to this. You know, we're measuring attribution, we're measuring someone's exposed, someone bought a product. So we have to make sure that we've got quite, you know, a pure seed audience that we're working with. But, you know, I do think that there are other examples where publishers probably could get involved where they didn't have as large scale as we have, because even with the scale we have, we do, you know, encounter delivery challenges because of the drop off that happens when you're trying to match exact people target them.
More.
Yeah,
that's clear.
Yeah,
Any more?
I was just going to touch on Alex's point. I think it is a challenge, and this isn't necessarily unique to commerce as an emerging part of the industry, but that ability to be able to drive relevance within, you know, whatever the scale that you have is the key driver. So there will be players who just aren't the size of a Channel 4 in this instance, or even, you know, realistically of an Amazon, but they still have that element of relevance. And that element of relevance will still drive high value demand and high value CPMs, or kind of, you know, they will be able to charge high value fees for access to those audiences. So in some cases it will be very niche, but again, very relevant and very specific. But the ability, again, utilizing that data to really inform how planners and buyers target those audiences and build their campaigns for those, that can be a way to combat scale. And the other element that I always like to couple with, because Alex, I have the scale conversation here as well quite a lot, is, you know, scale is always one factor of it, but also the expertise that is potentially a challenge for some of these newer and smaller companies to build into retail media and feel how can they grow and take advantage of some of the opportunity that's here. And, you know, it's really then around kind of finding either internally the right level of expertise, or as is also available, kind of looking through the marketplace. There are, as this industry or this part of the industry develops, there will be platforms and companies who are designed to help support businesses through that growth phase and through those initial challenges that they face, to really make sure that, you know, the scope of demand is there. There is definitely more than enough opportunity for everyone to go in and take a piece. There isn't, you know, we're not in the same position where there were only ever going to be a few players who lock out the full opportunity for everyone. This just gives broad access to a wide range of players to come in and take advantage of some of the demand that's there.
Now that's a good segue, because the next theme I want to make sure we deliver on the big theme is, okay, we touched on the why now, we touched on the who, and now is what and how, you know. And I think we agree you need to define what is your audience, big or small. You need to know what is unique about your audience. That's not specific to retail media, it's any sort of media proposition. But then when it comes to, I think people rush to speak about tools, but there might be a critical issue about skills. And when I say skill is, if I am a retailer, any retailer in the UK or in Europe, where do I start? And again, I know firsthand, you know, going after some of the retailers in the UK and beyond, that there's very rarely a Mr. Retail Media or Mrs. Retail Media. You know, it's so what do you guys take on? And I know, Babs, you're happy to help many people with the external capabilities, but what would be needed? So what is needed to set up a retail media offering? You know, if we want to have a pass, what are the 3 ingredients of a successful retail media proposition? Each of you. But a key component, you know. And there's one I want to touch on as part of that is the tech part, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would look at it from our consultancy side, you know, when we talk to clients and things like that, is more often than not, even though, you know, at a strategic and tactical level, it might differ from one brand to another, but more often than not, it boils down to 3 or 4 main components, right? People, processes, tools or technology, and commercial models, right? Those are some of the four key ingredients that you need to have in order to build a strong retail media proposition. And you are right in saying that oftentimes we tend to focus a lot on the tools, but the reality is that whether you want to build your retail media proposition in-house or partner with an existing vendors or acquire a company that already does that, technology is going to play a key role, because you will need that technology to be able to facilitate access to your data and to your inventory to the market. And with that then comes, the question of skills, because, with technology adoption comes the need for onboarding new processes and hiring actually people that are well versed in those technologies as well, because you need to think about, what does that mean from an AdOps, AdOps point of view? What does that mean from a sales point of view? What does that mean from an activation point of view? What does that mean from a data engineering point of view? What does that mean, even things like people that necessarily don't think about it, but you will have to worry about managing insertion orders and bill pay and all of that. So it's a whole host of technology stack that you need to onboard. And I think, with that as well come, the commercial models, because oftentimes, retailers were not your traditional digital media owners, the Googles and the Facebooks of this world, right? So moving from a world where they were predominantly shopper, marketers, operators, to a world where they have to operate digitally, that brings, commercial models in place as well that need to be in line with what you're offering, because you need to make money out of it, right? Yes, we're talking about retail media offering the potential for lucrative margins, but if you don't control your cost, then you won't make money out of it. And I think, those are some of the four elements that needs to be borne in mind when thinking about building a retail media proposition.
Yeah, no, good clarification.
I can speak just from a publisher perspective, where we've gone out to market, once we realized that there was a gap in the offering, that some clients didn't have their own first party data, not just FMCG vertical, but other verticals as well, like who did hold that data. And there was a lot of enthusiasm from all different types of verticals who did have not necessarily loyalty programs, but in the travel industry, in the autos industry, where they had collected a lot of data. And I think, there's so much talk about data and monetization of data. However, scale still number one probably challenge, where someone might think 5 million emails of autos clients or travel clients or whatever is fantastic. It's actually when you really break it down into different categories or different segments that you're buying, the scale starts to disappear. But then also permissions. So many people would come to us and say, oh, we've got 15 million registered users or whatever, but actually when we drilled down and did our due diligence, they only actually had 3 million emails that they were actually allowed to use to pass to a third party to use for targeting purposes for advertising. So for me, it's probably really not just, it's the understanding this is actually quite a sophisticated area of business. There are data providers who've been doing this for a very long time. Advertisers expect that level of experience and sophistication. Understanding when you're gathering these emails or these contacts or these data points to get the right permissions to use them as well. So for me, those were the big factors for us, was that, there was a lot of excitement when we met with certain verticals, and then we realized we couldn't actually work with their data for various reasons, whereas Nectar really understood what was needed in this space.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think Alex and Kiesi have covered this really well. I think the one sort of piece that I would add, and I think what taking away from what the panelists are saying today is, there is the opportunity. I think everyone on the call, everyone kind of reading in the industry is very aware, is very real. It's huge, and there is a lot of opportunity for everyone and willing to make that step into this space. But everything that we're learning and everything that from the conversations we're involved in is really pointing to there is a huge amount of work that needs to be done internally by those companies. Everything from getting that internal stakeholder buy-in. I can't speak to the amount of conversations that I've had where the one or the two commercial people at the business who are fully bought into what we're trying to do. They are all against the, they're all interested in how we want to proceed. But ultimately, they do not have the buy-in from the privacy guy, the the technology team, the people who are actually going to be required to deliver a lot of the strategy that we're proposing. And without that, it essentially just it extends a conversation that is on paper very easily understood. Everyone can see the value in it. But if you don't have those fundamental building blocks sort of in place internally, everything that you then look to kind of build on beyond that, so the points that I really like that Kiesi kind of led to there, the people, the processes, understanding your commercial offering, understanding your the technology that you're going to put in place. All of that falls by the wayside if you don't have that internal buy-in and that stakeholder champion who's really going to drive that strategy forward internally.
And that's all very good clarification. I think on the one observation on the tech stack as a whole is that maybe most, if we speak about retailers, are figuring out pretty quickly that ad execution, ad management layer that Casey was referring to earlier, and the data layer is maybe left last. And I would argue that if you have a very specific audience, maybe not as big as Amazon, no one has, maybe the data layer is the one that will allow you to, monetize your inventory as a retailer quicker than thinking of the entire infrastructure that is needed to start putting banners and, being yourself like a retail media network. That's more like an observation. And I don't know, on that tech piece and the activation and what is needed, Alex, Mediarithmics, we work with Channel 4. How, for people, because there's a lot of words out there like clean room, and we know that you do a great job with InfoSum to get that overlay clarified when you work with a brand. What do you do then? What do you need to do then at delivery time, for example, with the Mediarithmics or other partners like PubMatic? What do you need to do at that stage?
Yeah, for me, so for Channel 4, we are tech agnostic, but we have a select few tech partners that we really work with. So, when we first do a match, whether it be a first party data match with the client's advertiser data, or in this case with Nectar's data, that is done through the InfoSum clean room. On both sides, we only work with email to email data match. We don't use any other data points. Lots of reasons for that I can't go into today, but email to email has proven to be what everyone seems to be continuing to use as the best data point right now. And then we create this new audience, which is a Channel 4 user plus that, that customer matched together. And then we push that new audience through to our CDP, which is Mediarithmics. And then from there, we push that through to our ad server. If it's a first party data match, so a brand match campaign, so maybe first, a brand like Toyota or someone, then we may apply lookalike modeling, and that is done within that Mediarithmics environment. And then push through to our ad server. We currently are not applying lookalike modeling to our Nectar campaigns. We're just pushing that pure group through to our ad server freewheel. So that's who we're working with. Currently, we do offer all of our products are available to be bought programmatic guaranteed, but we are still quite cautious with passing any data at the moment. So we apply all targeting on our side. We use the programmatic pipes for the DSP allows us, but we apply all data on our side. Maybe in the future, though, I do know that the various DSPs are working with these retailers as sort of data management platforms, and they're, you can tick a box. I want to buy that Nectar segment in the DSP when you go to activate a campaign. At the moment, we're not working in that particular way, but you can buy us via the DSP, and we'll apply that targeting on our side. So yeah, we do, work with various tech partners. We keep it to a limited number, but we are quite agnostic with our approach.
No, that's interesting. And before we go to Q&A and the networking, which I'm looking forward to, I think we had the whole theme about the benefits, but I think throughout the conversation, we touched on the benefits for brands, the benefits for publishers or retailers who are the new publishers. what I wanted to touch on quickly are the use cases. You know, for someone who not being retail media experts, can we touch on-site versus off-site versus omni-channel? We haven't touched about the in-store experience. Is it part of the retail media, etc.? But if we wanted to give the audience a top 3, I would say retail media use cases, before we go into questions, what would they be? And maybe each of us have a different view of what they are, but I think there will be consensus.
I mean, I again, just because part of my role sort of involves speaking with both kind of the buy side and the supply side in this, and you know, I think increasingly what we are seeing is the most interesting use cases are how brands can sort of view the commerce channel as a much more full funnel execution channel.
Mm-hmm.
That meaning that they can start to drive much more sort of high value branded awareness at the top of the funnel, based again on data and consumer behavior and that sort of access to consented data, but also, you know, using again that sort of purchase behavior and that sort of knowledge of the user to drive either, you know, sort of product trials, lead gen activity, and then all the way through to kind of that sort of more performance led targeted sales activity, because of the fact that a lot of these retailers aren't able then to pass back that performance data and attribute that sales value to the activity that brands have run. So I think those kind of or that view of commerce as a much broader execution layer than it has traditionally been seen, or, you know, people who've just seen it as people are in the purchase funnel, let's throw them an offer or an ad. I think that ability to capture a much wider way of carrying a conversation with users is a great use case for commerce across the board, really.
I can jump in here from an agency and brand perspective, and because again, those are some of the elements that oftentimes are forgotten to talk about retail media, commerce media, is that apart from the, you know, program activations or campaign activations, to use a more common lingo, of on-site activation and off-site, in and out of store, CRM based, I think one of the fundamental things that brands and agencies are also interested in when they participate in retail media is really to have access to insights that also can enable brands, especially, to inform, you know, their NPD, because retail media also starts with the type of product that you're going to push in market, and also, you know, the type of insight that can enable them to inform their content strategy more broadly. You know, if I know who my audience is, then I will understand how to talk to them more effectively and more efficiently. Because the reality is that channels evolve, but the core principles of digital remain the same. It all starts and ends with data. So the scale and the quality of retailers' data, really from our side as agencies and brand, truly is the fuel that ignites the retail media fire. Because, you know, at the end of the day, as much as you know, we try to overcomplicate things in our industry sometimes, it all boils down to, you know, the understanding of who do I need to target, you know, where do I need to target them, with what message, and what am I going to see at the back of it. And that, for me, is, you know, the bread and butter of digital marketing beyond just, you know, retail media.
Absolutely.
I think I probably have a lot of crossover with Kiesa and Babs, but I think that firstly, the number one is where we operate, which is using the retailer's data to target advertisers on existing media platforms. So that's the first case. Second is that the retailers are acting as media owners themselves, which for me is a very interesting space to watch, because I guess we're starting to compete for the same advertisers, but we are very different and we can all get along. And I think lastly, like Kiesa was just saying, I think it's above and beyond the basics. It's above and beyond someone purchased this in the last 8 weeks. There is so much insight behind the data these retailers and loyalty programs have that it's kind of mind-boggling. They know, you know, not just that someone's a loyal customer or lapsed customer or what have you, but also what's their potential for buying X because they bought the other thing over there. So, and, you know, all of the sort of insights and machine learning that's going to be gained over the next few years. It's going to be a really interesting space to watch, above and beyond just the basics that we're working with.
Yeah, no, and I mean, any minute Cameron is gonna, remove us from the stage, and I want to make sure we have time for questions. But on what you just said, and maybe it's not really a wrap up. We're gonna have the question time for this, but on what you just said, I think there's an opportunity for retailers who want to become media owner for that use case. Is that unlike traditional media, they have a wide canvas, so to speak. So provided that they get their strategy in order, that they got the right people, like everything that Casey was confirming earlier, I think there's also an opportunity there that it might be a less complex stack. Imagine if traditional media owner could start from scratch. Imagine if you started without third-party cookie. That's the reality of retailers, is that it might be a simpler, it's not just hurdles and things you need that you don't have, it's also an opportunity because there's a bit of a wide canvas here. I'll stop here, and I think we'll have more time to discuss, but to be fair, I had my parting words. Does anyone want to, add a wrap-up comment before we let Cameron back in?
I mean, I'm only just because and again, I probably always talk too much anyway. But I just wanted to pick up on Alex's point, because I think it's amazing what commerce companies and retailers especially are now going to be able to enable brands to tap into. Because if we think about, a lot of this, especially when we look at the kind of traditional retailers and the kind of loyalty card data, and even when we look at that broader sort of element, the loyalty card extends beyond a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's. There are the likes of a Boots, Shell, or sort of other kind of commerce style companies who also have all of this data, who've been working, and they have had access to that intelligence and the insights that loyalty data has provided for them, and have for years been using that data in really innovative ways for their businesses. The ability now for brands to be able to tap into that and really inform a much more kind of innovative way to plan their media. Because again, I think Alex had a great example, not just being able to use kind of historical data and, they bought X, so let's sell them Y, but, that propensity to buy, that ability to change, brand habits because they are more willing to try new elements. There was a great piece, it's probably a few months old now, that Shell put out about how they used their loyalty card data, both for kind of gamifying how they encouraged people to buy more petrol. It's a bit weird, but I'm sure we all play the game trying to hit the exact number on the at the pump, but using that data again to inform how they can drive more people to not just buy more petrol at the pumps, but also drive them into the store to use that, based on that data to pick things up in store. So fascinating kind of access to data that's really, I think we're only at the beginning of what this will mean for targeting and how brands will use this. And I think this is a key reason why we're all kind of here on the panel, people here kind of watching. It's going to be fascinating.
Thank you, Alex, Brad, Casey. I think, I hope people will tell us in a minute that we added value to their reflection or their practice. Cameron, if you want to let yourself in, you're here. Thank you to the digital voice, by the way. I don't think we acknowledged all the work behind the org and the delivery of the event. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, and thank you to our panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you as well, JV, for hosting the session today and asking some really good questions to the panelists. It's been a really good session. So as JV mentioned to everybody, there's also going to be a networking section just after this. So it's kind of like Sims, a bit like Habbo Hotel. And what you're going to see is it looks like a floor plan of lots of different tables. And basically you can just click around As simple as that, to go talk to speakers, talk to other people in the audience. Just double click on a table and you can move over. Make sure that your cam and mic is on to get chatting, and we'll be whizzing around checking on you if you look like you're a little bit lost. But massive thank you to everyone today, and thanks for all your participation in the chat. I'd like to just end it with the answers to the poll, because there was a lot of answers on that one. So the question was, which all 4 show do beer buys at Sainsbury's watch the most? It was Gogglebox, Taskmaster, and Married at First Sight. JV, Babs, did you have any opinions on those ones? JV.
I went by the audience and I thought definitely Taskmaster.
What did you think, JV?
Well, I watch multiple national TV programs, and I'm not going to tell you all of them, but I would have thought Gogglebox.
Well, Babs is right. The answer was Taskmaster. It's quite interesting. We had good fun looking at these insights. So it's quite fun to see the different things that you can do with data. So anyway, thank you, everyone, and I'll see you down on the networking floor. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron.
Bye-bye.